Welcome to the Money Over 50 podcast, brought to you by Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue from Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. This information is general in nature and does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. Therefore, you should consider whether the information is appropriate for you and your personal circumstances. If you require personal advice, please contact Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. Here are your hosts, Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue.
Welcome to Money Over 50. Today's topic, Michael, is one of yours. It's called Rationality Under Uncertainty. I've got no idea what we're about to talk about, so please share it with me.
Thanks, Dal. So we're recording this podcast mid-calendar year 2022. And, of course, if you're listening to this way in the future, the things that were going on at this point in time were, of course, the Russian invasion of the Ukraine. It's ongoing at the moment. The potential for China to invade Taiwan. Inflation that is spiked,
rampant,
running really, really hot, significantly spiked up. The ongoing effects of COVID-19. Of course, as well. So people say to me, it's a term that I hear a lot, and I've heard a lot over the last 20 years, and it's these are uncertain times. And I laugh, and people say, what are you laughing at? And I say, we've seen all of this before. The world has seen this before, and every year there is something that's uncertain.
No one ever sits there and goes, geez, these are certain times, aren't they? Just everything's boring, nothing's new, like nothing's different. It's all the same. It just does not happen.
And the comment almost has a question in it. And the question is, I believe, is these are uncertain times. Should we be doing anything about it? Should we be changing our investment policy? Should we be? And some people come out and say that.
But
should we get out? And get back in when things settle down? But more often than not, people just make the statement, these are uncertain times. And in that is an implied question. And the implied question is, from my experience, hey, is there anything we can do? Is there anything that you can do about this? Is there anything that these companies should be doing about this? Is there anything that should we be out of some of these companies into other companies? So I wanted to talk today about the great companies of Australia and the rest of the world. I think people see them as static beings sometimes, in terms of, they're a bank, or they're a manufacturer, or they're, whatever they are. What companies do a really, really good job, and they do this far quicker than governments, is they take all this data of what's happening and they reallocate capital all the time.
So quickly.
They pivot. If that product line or that service or whatever that is dying, they sell out of that, get what they can for it, pivot into something else. They buy a competitor. They're reallocating money all the time. So there's no worry for me about being invested into the great quality companies of Australia and the world. That they do it for you. There is a CEO and a board and
all the people that work there,
C-suite of executives everywhere, and a staff and an R&D department and a sales department and marketing. All of those types of things. Quality control. They're doing that with all of the data that's being presented to them all the time.
I can't remember now what we've discussed this on a recent podcast about. You can't. What I find interesting is when it comes to companies where people hold what they actually are is two conflicting views, but people don't see it as. They go, these big greedy corporations, all they care about is making money, and then on the other hand, they say these corporations, they're risky to be invested in. Mate, if you're going to be invested in something, don't you want to be invested in the big greedy corporation all they care about is making a profit? If they're driven purely by, again, there's all sorts of separate issues here about, being a responsible member of the, blah, blah, all the rest of it. Forget putting all that aside, just in terms of dollar returns, if you can be invested in these companies that are their whole reason for existence is to maximize profits for shareholders, of which you can be one. All they do, all the people that work there, they don't wake up and think, as in the example there of if you're invested in a bank, they don't wake up every day and think, how can we be the best bank in Australia? They wake up every day and think, how can we maximise profits for shareholders? If that means that we buy the bank next door because they're a better bank than us, then that's what we'll do.
Yeah, that's what they do. And I mean, like, I've had some questions recently over China. China's obviously knocking back our exports. And people go, how's it going to affect that company? And I said, well, they'll just export to someone else. Or they'll stop that. And they'll do something else. Like, they'll reallocate that. So at the moment, they're exporting to China.
It's interesting. Interesting you say that. I had lunch with a mate, a friend of a friend. I had lunch with a friend, and he had a mate with him 6 months ago, and he had a exporting. This is like, what's the Seinfeld, the import exporting business, and he's works in exporting produce, and this was a conversation we had 6 months ago, where he knew this was on the horizon. He was saying, look, there's all sorts of noise coming out of China. We're starting to push some of the, we're starting to open up into different markets, even though they might be slightly less profitable right now, because we can sort of see that there's something coming up, and we're a bit worried about the political climate there, all these sorts of things. And exactly that, like 6 months later, we're reading newspapers going, oh, this is a problem. Mate, this bloke's whole go in life, every waking minute of his working day is spent thinking about how could things go wrong, and the constructive paranoia of how do I make sure that I keep making money. Now, his was his own private business, but the same concept applies there for, if he worked for a big company, his whole career depends on his ability to take in all that data about what's there, and that's, your title of the podcast, Rationality Under Uncertainty. The uncertainty is consistent. The uncertainty never goes away. The uncertainty is always there. His job is to use that data and make the rational decision, the best decision that he can with the data that he has at that point in time. It's not to say that it'll always be right.
No.
It can't, he might have been wrong. He might have turned around 6 months' time and said, oh, well, actually China's opened everything back up, and all I've done is miss out on a few profits and wasted some time opening up other markets that I didn't need to. But he is, and all of the people involved in running a profitable business, all they are thinking about all the time is how to best maximise profits over the long term.
Yeah, and they reallocate very, very quickly.
Yeah,
and they make decisions that result in their, not only their survival, but their flourishing.
Yeah,
flourishment. So and if we go back through history, so I guess I say here, look at history, not the headlines. So, if you go back through history, we've seen countless wars. Nick Murray, who's a really big mentor of ours, was born in 1943. I've heard him say this before, and he said the S&P 500 was 12 on that day that he was born in 1943. Now, 1943 was right in the middle of the World War II.
Yeah.
So the S&P 500, the largest 500 companies in America, were 12 that day. So think of that as $12 per share.
Yeah.
So I don't get into trouble. I'm just looking up the
actual
today.
Number.
So on the 21st of July 2022, they are 3,959.
Yeah.
Think of that as them having grown from $12 per share to $3,959 per share. In recent times, they've been higher than that.
Yeah.
And that's what everyone looks at.
Yes.
I mean, people don't look at the fact that over, right in the middle of World War II, they were $12 per share.
Yep. And in the middle of the conflict between Russia and the Ukraine, the war in Ukraine, they're at
$3,959 per share. People look at the fact that on the 1st of January this year, they are at $4,796 per share. So they say, well, they've fallen $800 per share.
Yeah, and then they say these are uncertain times.
These are uncertain times.
There's nothing more uncertain than 1943.
1943, there's nothing more uncertain.
Yeah.
Since then, we've had countless bouts of high inflation, countless wars, pandemics, terrorist attacks, recessions, depression. Oh, no depressions, I think, but recessions.
Yeah.
In that period of time, just in that one man's lifespan.
Yeah.
And this doesn't include dividends. If we rolled back the dividends, that figure would become astronomical.
Yeah.
But just the share prices.
Yeah.
Gone from $12 per share to $3,959 per share. So that's history.
Yeah.
That's not a headline. That is history.
Yeah.
We look to history. We would say to people, look more to history, not to headlines.
Thank you for listening to the Money Over 50 podcast with Money Over 50 financial advisors. For more information and resources, visit the Money Over 50 website, mo50.com.au. We look forward to catching up again soon.